Oxtail Potjie. Simple, comfort food, no strict recipe, easy to do, and oxtail is delicious and cheap. Stick around, I'll show you how I'm going to do it. So, to make potjie, you need technically a potjie pot. Can you make it in a regular pot, regular cast iron Dutch oven? Of course you can. This is a South African style pot. It has 3 legs and it is referred to as the potjie. How does a potjie differ from a stew? Are they the same thing? Well, basically, the purists are going to tell you that a potjie is not stirred, whereas a stew is stirred. Now, I don't know about you, but when I cook stew, I don't stand there stirring it. But that said, when I do a potjie, I do layer it. But we're going to get cracking. I've got a fire started. I'll prepare the meat and we'll proceed. I like using oxtail. For this you could use something else. You could use chuck that you've cut into cubes or whatever. But I like oxtail because I think it has a lot of flavor and a lot of collagen. It just makes for a great sauce, great gravy. Now, I only use salt, pepper and garlic. It's what I use on most things. A quick dredge in flour as well, because I prefer to use the flour instead of using a packet soup or whatever to thicken it at the end. Now, when you brown your meat, you've got to make sure that your pot is hot enough and that you do it in batches. If you don't do it in batches, you end up with grey meat and you don't brown it. And when you brown your meat, that is where the flavour is. So brown it in batches. It takes a bit longer, but it's worth the effort. While your meat is browning, you can then start preparing all the other things. Now I like to do onions, garlic, and then my spices first. And once the meat is cooked off, browned off, then I would add my onions and whatnot. While preparing your veg, handy tip, have a bowl, a container, whatever, to put scraps in, to put waste in. It just makes it so much easier and you don't clutter up your chopping board. You also don't need to take too much time or too much effort in trying to chop everything super fine or small or whatever. Bigger chunks, uneven chunks, it doesn't matter. This is going to cook for so long that you're really not going to notice. The softer veg, I'll try and cut it a little bit more evenly, but with this, I'm really not too bothered, and I wouldn't waste my time if I were you. So, we've got to always keep checking on our meat and see how it's going. I'm doing this in bits and pieces, so a little bit of back and forth, but it's actually quite nice. It's quite satisfying to be able to cook something like this outdoors instead of being in a kitchen. It makes for a pleasant change. So I'm going to be adding some bay leaf, some garlic powder, some black pepper, some oregano, some paprika, and I have some dried mushrooms as well. A little bit of oil added to the pot. Adding my onions, adding the garlic. Cook this off a little bit, and then I always like to fry my spices. I believe they just release much more flavor. You just end up with a better end product, and I'm all for flavor. Cook this down a little bit It doesn't have to get very much color on it, and once you're happy with it, say 3 minutes or so, 5 minutes of cooking, depending how hot your fire is, then you can add your ground off meat back and then decide on your liquids. Now, I like the combination of red wine with beef, but a dark beer would go spectacularly well. Using a stout or something, you could use a lighter beer, but I think you want something that's got a little bit more body to it and a little bit more robust flavour. I only used a glass of wine, or a generous glass of wine in this, and then I add a little bit of beef stock. You don't want to drown your potjie, but you don't want it to dry out either. So make sure you've got enough stock in there, and when you're happy with it, you can put the lid on it and basically forget it for at least a couple of hours. Keep the fire going, not too hot. You don't want to burn this. And while it cooks, you can carry on with the other prep. Start prepping your softer veg. And the great thing with potjie is that you can actually put anything into it. Now, I'm putting in some peppers and tomato and mushrooms. For harder veg, I'm only using carrots and potatoes, but you could use parsnip. You could put basically anything into it. Also, these don't need to be particularly finely chopped, but try and get them even sized or fairly even sized. They just cook a little bit better. And you want everything to cook evenly. Zucchini is great for this. It gives it a little bit of flavor and quite like the texture. You don't need to cook it all that long. It doesn't have to turn into mush. I probably did cook my zucchini a little bit longer than what it should have been done for, but you live and learn. I like leaving my mushrooms in big chunks, partly because I really like the big chunks of mushroom, and my wife doesn't like the mushroom, so it's easier for her to fish them out.
Let's have a look how the potjie is coming along. It's bubbling away nicely.
A quick word on fire management, because this is pretty critical when doing a potjie. You don't need a raging fire. You don't need it to be super hot. You really do not want to put in all the love and effort and time into making a potjie and then burn the hell out of it. Disappointment would just be immense. So I like to have a small fire going, and I shift bits of coal or bits of burning wood under the potjie as need be. Nothing too dramatic. Also, be sure to check the liquid level in your pot. Have enough liquid in there at all times. You could always add a little bit of stock. It just makes things so much better.
Our oxtail's been cooking for about 2.5 hours now. Time to add our hard vegetables. Going to add potato first, then the carrot in layers, and after this there's no stirring allowed. Otherwise it's a stew and not a potjie. Just have a look. Our oxtail has been in for about 4.5 hours, nearly 5. Time to add the dumplings. It's bubbling away nicely. Let's get our dumplings in. Basically, these are just bread rolls. We're going to cook in the juice. Just one more starch component. They'll probably be in there for about half an hour or so. See what they actually look like. Give it half an hour, maybe a bit longer, and they should be done. Five and a half hours cook time. Time to have a look. It's looking good. Time to get it in and have a taste. We have my take on cooking an oxtail potjie. I loved cooking this. I love the idea of cooking outside. I love eating this meal. It's something you should do for your friends if possible. They will enjoy it, your family will appreciate it. And there's nothing quite like bringing the whole pot to the table and everyone can dish up for themselves. Let me know if you give this recipe a try. If there are recipes or different types of things that you want to see, please comment, let me know. I'll try and accommodate you. For now, if you're enjoying these, please like, subscribe, and take care, and I'll see you the next time. Cheers.